On the night when the star fell from the sky, the world seemed unusually quiet. It wasn't the sort of night where one could hear the usual rustling of leaves or the soft chirping of the night creatures. Instead, everything was still, as if the universe itself had paused to watch. In a small village nestled between the hills, a little boy named Eli sat by his window, gazing up at the sky. He had always loved looking at the stars, finding comfort in their bright, steady light. But tonight, something was different. The sky was filled with an odd shimmer, like a secret waiting to be told. Eli's heart raced with excitement, a feeling he couldn't quite explain. As he watched, a star, brighter and more beautiful than any he had ever seen, began to move. Slowly, it grew larger and brighter, its glow reflecting off the surrounding trees. It was as though the entire night was holding its breath. And then, with a sudden flash, the star fell from the sky, landing softly on the earth. Eli's eyes widened in disbelief. He quickly ran outside, his bare feet brushing against the cool grass as he followed the shimmering trail of light. The star had landed in a small clearing near the edge of the forest, its glow still strong despite the night's quietude. As he reached the clearing, Eli stopped in his tracks. There, lying on the ground, was the fallen star, no longer a blazing ball of light, but a small glowing object that seemed to pulse with warmth. It was beautiful, like nothing he had ever seen before. As he knelt beside it, Eli could feel the warmth radiating from the star, as if it had a life of its own. He carefully reached out and touched it, and the moment his fingers made contact, a gentle voice whispered from within the star, "Help me." Startled, Eli pulled his hand back, his heart thudding in his chest. The voice was soft, like a breeze, but full of sadness. Who are you?" Eli asked, his voice trembling. The star pulsed again, and this time the voice spoke more clearly. "I am a star, fallen from the sky. My light is fading, and I cannot return without help." Eli's eyes filled with wonder and concern. "What can I do to help?" The star's light flickered, and then it whispered once more. "I need you to remember. Remember the sky, the night, and the stars. They have the power to bring me back." Eli's mind raced. He didn't fully understand, but he knew that he couldn't just leave the star there. It had fallen for a reason, and perhaps he was meant to help. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he tried to recall the nights he had spent staring up at the stars. He thought about the vastness of the sky, the beauty of the twinkling lights, and the peace they brought him. He thought about the stories his grandmother had told him, of stars that danced in the heavens, each one a wish, a dream, or a memory. Slowly, a soft warmth began to spread from the star into his hands, and Eli felt a strange connection to the night itself. The warmth grew, and for a moment, Eli could feel the sky above him, the stars, and the universe itself. He felt the stories, the dreams, and the wishes that had been whispered through the ages. It was as if he had become one with the night. The star pulsed once more, its light becoming brighter. "Thank you," it whispered. "You have remembered." Eli's eyes shone with tears as he smiled. He didn't know how he had helped, but he could feel the star's power growing stronger. The sky above seemed to open up, and the stars shone even brighter, as if they too were celebrating. Slowly, the star began to lift from his hands, rising into the air, glowing more brightly than ever before. It hovered for a moment, casting a soft light on the earth below, before it shot up into the sky, returning to its place among the stars. Eli stood there, watching as the star ascended, his heart full of awe. He felt as though he had witnessed something magical, something that only those with pure hearts could understand. The quiet of the night returned, but it was a peaceful kind of quiet, filled with the knowledge that something incredible had just happened. Eli returned to his home, but as he lay in bed that night, he knew that he would never forget the star. He had helped it return to the sky, and in doing so, he had touched something beyond the world he knew. He closed his eyes and drifted off, to sleep, knowing that the stars were not just distant lights in the sky, but living, breathing things with stories of their own. And from that night on, whenever Eli looked up at the sky, he would smile, for he knew that somewhere among the stars there was one that remembered him, a star that had fallen from the sky but had found its way back, with a little help from a boy who believed in the magic of the night. On a quiet night, when the forest was wrapped in a blanket of mist, a gentle glow began to appear amidst the trees. The forest, which was usually filled with the sounds of rustling leaves and the calls of nocturnal creatures, seemed still, almost as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something magical to unfold. Beneath the canopy of towering oaks and whispering pines, a young girl named Lily stood by a small stream, her bare feet dipping into the cool water as she gazed into the depths of the forest. She had always loved the woods, finding peace in the rustling of the leaves and the soft murmur of the stream. But tonight, something was different. The usual sounds of the forest were absent, replaced by an eerie silence that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. It wasn't an unpleasant silence, but one that felt heavy with anticipation. As Lily looked deeper into the forest, she noticed a faint light flickering in the distance. At first, it was nothing more than a soft, glowing dot, barely noticeable through the thick trees. But as she watched, the light grew brighter and larger, casting a gentle, warm glow on the forest floor. It wasn't the harsh, artificial light of a lantern or torch. It was soft, almost like the glow of fireflies, but much brighter and steadier. Intrigued, Lily felt a pull in her heart, a desire to see what the source of the light was. She took a deep breath, her heart racing with excitement and curiosity, and began to walk toward the glow. The trees seemed to part before her, as if guiding her way, and the forest floor was bathed in a soft, ethereal light that made everything look otherworldly. She walked slowly, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of moss, feeling as though she were in a dream, as if the forest itself had become alive and was leading her to something extraordinary. The deeper she walked into the forest, the brighter the glow became, until it seemed as though the very air was filled with soft, shimmering light. She could now see a shape ahead, something small but radiant, sitting in the middle of a clearing. As she approached, the glow grew even more intense, and Lily could see a delicate figure sitting on a rock in the center of the clearing. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before. The figure was small, no larger than a child, with translucent wings that shimmered like the surface of water in the moonlight. Its skin glowed with a soft golden hue, and its eyes, though large and wide, held a sense of wisdom beyond its years. It looked at Lily with a calm, knowing gaze, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Lily felt a wave of wonder and peace wash over her, as though she had entered a place beyond the ordinary world, a place where magic lived in the very air. The figure, sensing Lily's awe, smiled gently. "You have come," it said, its voice soft like the rustle of leaves in the wind, yet full of warmth and kindness. "I was waiting for you." Lily's mouth went dry, and she had to swallow before speaking. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. The figure chuckled softly, a sound like the tinkling of wind chimes. "I am a spirit of the forest," it explained. "I am here to protect this place and all its creatures. But sometimes, the forest needs help, and it calls to those with a kind heart, those who can see beyond the surface of things." Lily's eyes widened. "You called to me." The figure nodded, its wings fluttering slightly as it did. "I have watched you," it said. "You have always cared for the forest. You listen to its whispers and help when you can. Tonight, the forest needs your help more than ever." Lily felt her heart beat faster, the weight of the words sinking in. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fluttering of her chest. The figure's expression grew serious, though its eyes still held warmth. "There is a part of the forest that is dying," it said softly. "A tree, ancient and wise, has begun to wither. It is losing its light, and if it dies, the forest will lose its strength. The balance will be broken, and the creatures of this place will suffer. Lily's mind raced. She had always known the forest was alive, that it held secrets and magic, but she had never imagined it could die. "How can I help?" she asked urgently. "I will do anything." The figure smiled again, its wings glowing brighter. "You must go to the heart of the forest, to the ancient tree. There, you will find what you need." With that, the figure reached into the soft light surrounding it and pulled out a small glowing seed. "This seed," it said, "holds the essence of life. It is the last of its kind. You must plant it at the base of the tree, and with it, you will restore the balance. The forest will live again." Lily nodded, feeling the weight of the seed in her hand, the warmth from it seeping into her skin. She didn't hesitate. She turned and began walking toward the heart of the forest, the light from the spirit guiding her path. The journey seemed longer this time, as if the forest itself was testing her determination. But Lily did not falter. She had a purpose now. As she reached the ancient tree, she stopped, her breath catching in her throat. The tree was magnificent, its trunk thick and gnarled, its branches reaching high into the sky. But its leaves were dull, and the once vibrant light that had shone from within, it was dimming. Without a moment's hesitation, Lily knelt at the base of the tree and gently planted the glowing seed into the earth. As soon as she did, a warm, gentle breeze swept through the clearing, and the tree's branches began to stir. The leaves, once dull, began to shimmer with a soft light, and the tree's trunk seemed to pulse with life. Lily watched in awe as the tree's light grew brighter, filling the forest with a radiant glow. The balance was restored, and the forest breathed again. The creatures of the forest, who had been hiding in the shadows, began to emerge, their eyes filled with gratitude. The spirit appeared once more beside her, smiling. "You have saved the forest," it said softly. "Your heart is pure, and your love for this place has restored its life." Lily stood there, feeling the weight of the forest's gratitude surrounding her, and for the first time, she understood the true magic of the world around her. As the forest settled back into its peaceful rhythm, Lily made her way home, her heart light with the knowledge that she had played a part in the forest's survival. That night, as she lay in her bed, the soft glow of the forest still lingered in her mind, and the gentle whispers of the trees filled her dreams. And as she drifted off to sleep, she knew that she would always be a part of the forest's story, just as the forest would always be a part of hers. In the heart of a vast forest under the cover of night, when the moon hung low and the stars twinkled like scattered diamonds, there lived an owl named Orla. She was no ordinary owl. Her feathers were a deep shade of midnight blue, and her eyes, wide and sharp, glowed like lanterns in the dark. Orla was known for her wisdom, her ability to see far into the distance, and her unmatched hearing, which allowed her to catch even the faintest of sounds in the wind. Every night, as the forest fell into a quiet slumber, Orla would take flight, soaring gracefully through the trees, her wings making no sound as she glided from branch to branch. She had always felt connected to the forest, as though she were an ancient part of it, a keeper of secrets that the world below had forgotten. But one night, something different happened. It was the beginning of autumn, and the trees had just started to shed their golden leaves. The air was crisp and filled with the scent of earth and pine, and the forest seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Orla perched on her favorite branch, high up in a great oak, looking out across the forest. It was then that she heard it. A whisper, faint and almost imperceptible as if the wind itself was speaking. At first, Orla thought it was just the rustling of leaves, but the more she listened, the clearer the voice became. It was a soft, delicate sound, like a gentle sigh carried on the wind, a voice so faint that it was almost lost in the night. Orla's heart fluttered with curiosity. She had heard many things in her years of flight, but never anything like this. The whisper was calling her, pulling her towards something deep within the forest. It was a voice full of longing, full of mystery, and it stirred something inside her. Without hesitation, Orla spread her wings and took flight, following the sound of the whisper. She flew through the trees, her sharp eyes scanning the shadows below, her feathers barely making a sound. The whisper grew louder, and as she flew deeper into the heart of the forest, the air seemed to change. It was as though the trees themselves were alive, watching her, guiding her on her journey. Orla had flown through these woods countless times, but tonight the forest felt different, as if it were holding its breath in anticipation. The whisper led her to a clearing she had never visited before. It was small and hidden, surrounded by thick brambles and tangled vines. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, its bark dark and gnarled, its roots twisting deep into the earth. The whisper was now clear, and Orla could hear the words. Though faint, they were unmistakable. "Help me. Find me." Orla tilted her head, her sharp hearing picking up the soft plea. It was as though the voice was coming from the tree itself. Intrigued and determined to uncover the mystery, Orla flew closer to the tree, her wings beating softly in the still night air. She landed gracefully on a low branch and looked closely at the tree's twisted roots. There, nestled in the shadow of the tree, was a small, glowing stone. It was no bigger than a walnut, but its light was warm and inviting, casting a soft glow across the clearing. Orla's heart skipped a beat. She had seen many strange things in her life, but this was unlike anything she had encountered before. The stone seemed to pulse with life, as if it were calling to her, just like the whisper had. She could feel its energy, its magic, and her feathers tingled with the sensation of something ancient and powerful. Orla leaned in closer, her sharp beak reaching toward the stone, and as she did, she heard the whisper again, this time louder and more insistent. "Help me. Bring me back." Orla's wings fluttered in uncertainty. What did it mean? Who was calling out to her? The stone's light flickered, and for a moment, Orla thought she saw a face in its glow. It was a face she recognized, an owl, with feathers of silver and eyes that shone like stars. The face was familiar, yet distant, like a memory from another time. Orla's heart skipped again, and she felt a sudden rush of understanding. The owl in the stone was her ancestor, a great guardian of the forest who had lived long before her. It was said that the guardians of the forest could communicate across time, their spirits lingering in the earth, the trees, and the stars. And now, it seemed, the spirit of her ancestor was reaching out to her for help. Without thinking, Orla carefully reached down with her talons and touched the glowing stone. The moment her claws made contact, a surge of energy passed through her, and the forest around her seemed to come alive. The trees swayed, the wind picked up, and the air was thick with the scent of magic. Orla's wings fluttered as the stone pulsed with light, brighter and brighter until it nearly blinded her. Then, with a soft whoosh, the light vanished, leaving only the faint glow of the stone. In its place, a figure stood, a great owl with feathers of silver and eyes that shone like stars. The owl spread its wings wide, and Orla's heart swelled with recognition. It was the spirit of her ancestor, standing before her, alive once more. The owl spoke, its voice deep and rich, like the wind through the trees. "Thank you, Orla," it said, its voice filled with gratitude. "You have helped me return to the forest, to watch over it once more." Orla's feathers ruffled in awe. "But how?" she asked, her voice trembling. The spirit of her ancestor smiled, its eyes filled with wisdom. "The forest is alive, Orla," it explained. "It is a place of magic and life, where time and space are not always as they seem. By helping me, you have awakened the ancient power of the forest, and with it, you have brought me back." Orla felt a surge of pride and awe. She had always known that the forest was full of secrets, but she had never imagined that she was part of something so ancient and powerful. The spirit of her ancestor fluttered its wings, and Orla felt a wave of peace wash over her. "The forest will be safe now," the spirit said. "But remember, Orla, you are its guardian now. It is your turn to protect it, to listen to its whispers, and to guide those who come seeking its magic." Orla nodded, her heart filled with a sense of purpose. As the spirit of her ancestor faded into the night, its light dissolving into the stars, Orla knew that her journey was just beginning. From that night on, she would be the one to hear the whispers of the forest, to protect its secrets and its magic, and to watch over the creatures that called it home. And as she flew back into the night sky, the whisper that had called to her no longer seemed so distant. It was a part of her now, a part of the forest, and a part of the endless, timeless song that echoed through the trees. On a warm summer night, under the vast expanse of a starry sky, there was a quiet little meadow where the moonlight painted everything in soft shades of silver. The air was crisp with the scent of wildflowers, and the gentle breeze whispered through the tall grass, swaying it rhythmically. In the heart of this meadow, near a sparkling stream that twisted and turned like a ribbon of light, tiny fireflies began to stir. They were drawn to the moon's glow, their little bodies flashing in delicate bursts of golden light. The fireflies danced in the air, their movements fluid and mesmerizing, as if they were performing an ancient, sacred ritual known only to the stars themselves. Among these tiny creatures there was one firefly named Luma. She was smaller than most, her glow a faint shimmer compared to the bright flashes of her companions. But Luma was different in another way too. While the other fireflies simply danced with abandon, lost in the joy of the moment, Luma had always wondered what lay beyond the meadow, beyond the soft glow of the moonlight and the safety of the familiar trees. Every night, she would drift, higher into the sky, following the glow of the stars, feeling a pull, an unspoken call, as if something larger, something more mysterious, awaited her. This night was no different. As the moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver veil over the meadow, Luma fluttered into the air. She joined her fellow fireflies, but her movements were slower, more deliberate, as she searched for the spark, the moment, that would call her towards something new. The other fireflies flashed around her, their tiny bodies spinning in patterns that seemed to paint the air with light. Luma danced with them, but her eyes remained fixed on the horizon, where the stars twinkled like 1,000 tiny jewels. The breeze picked up, and for a moment it carried with it a scent, sweet and unfamiliar. It was the scent of distant flowers, of a forest she had never seen, and it called to her in a way she could not explain. She was drawn to it, her tiny wings carrying her away from the familiar glow of the meadow and toward the unknown. As she flew higher, leaving behind the fluttering dance of the other fireflies, Luma felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. The sky stretched endlessly before her, the moonlight guiding her like a lantern in the darkness. She followed the scent, floating on the air currents until the meadow below her seemed like a distant memory, just a patch of shadow beneath a sea of silver. The air grew cooler as she ascended, and the world around her became quieter, as though the night itself was holding its breath. The stars shone brighter now, and in their light, Luma saw the outline of a forest in the distance. Tall trees stretched into the sky, their leaves shimmering as if they too were catching the light of the moon. The fireflies she had left behind were now tiny pinpricks of light in the distance, far below her, but Luma wasn't afraid. She felt a calmness within her, as if this was where she was meant to be. She flew towards the forest, her heart beating faster as she neared its edge. As she entered the woods, the world seemed to shift. The trees whispered in a language she couldn't understand, their branches creaking softly in the wind. The leaves rustled and the night seemed to grow thicker, as if the forest was alive with secrets. Luma hovered in the air, her glow dimming, slightly, as though the forest's mysteries were absorbing her light. Yet she was not afraid. She was filled with awe, with wonder, as she drifted deeper into the heart of the forest. It was then that she saw them. Other fireflies, their bodies glowing softly in the dark. They were gathered around a small clearing, their lights flickering like stars come to earth. There was something magical about this place, as if the very air hummed with an ancient energy. The fireflies moved in intricate patterns, weaving through the air like dancers in a slow, graceful waltz. Luma watched in silence, her eyes wide with amazement. She had never seen anything so beautiful, so serene. The fireflies seemed to be calling her, inviting her to join them, to become part of their dance. Without hesitation, Luma flew closer, her wings cutting through the cool night air. As she approached, she felt a sudden warmth, a gentle pull towards the center of the circle. There, in the heart of the clearing, a single glowing flower bloomed, its petals shimmering like silver in the moonlight. The flower radiated a soft, peaceful light, and Luma could feel its energy filling her, calming her in a way she had never known before. It was as if the flower was alive, connected to the forest in ways that no one had ever understood. As she hovered near the flower, the other fireflies continued their dance, their movements more intricate now, as though they were celebrating the arrival of a new member to their circle. Luma's glow brightened, and she joined in the dance, her movements becoming one with the rhythm of the forest. The fireflies swirled around her, their lights blending together, creating a mesmerizing display of color and light. The air was filled with the soft sound of their wings, the rustle of leaves, and the distant calls of other creatures deep within the forest. Time seemed to slow as Luma danced, her small body moving with the flow of the universe, her heart light and free. The moon above them bathed the clearing in silver, casting long shadows on the forest floor, while the stars above flickered like the eyes of ancient beings, watching over the night. The forest had become a place of magic, a place where dreams and reality intertwined, where the fireflies' dance was not just a dance, but a celebration of life itself. Luma danced with them, her wings fluttering gently, her body moving with grace and beauty. She was no longer the small firefly who had felt so out of place in the meadow. She was a part of something much greater now, a part of the forest, a part of the magic that had existed long before her. As the night stretched on, Luma's glow grew brighter and the dance became more joyful, more alive. The fireflies twirled around her, their lights flashing in brilliant colors, and the moon watched over them like a silent guardian. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the scent of flowers and the promise of more adventures to come. And as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Luma knew that she had found her place in the world. She had followed the whisper of the wind, the call of the stars, and it had led her to the heart of the forest, where magic and mystery danced in the moonlight. The fireflies' dance continued, their lights flickering and fading as the first rays of sunlight touched the earth. And Luma, with her heart full of peace and wonder, fluttered her wings one last time before resting in the soft glow of the forest. She had found her home, and as the night gave way to the dawn, the fireflies faded into the shadows, their dance over for another night, but the memory of their movements, their glow, would stay with Luma forever, in the heart of a quiet forest where the trees stood, tall and proud, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of pine and wildflowers. There lived a kind and gentle rabbit named Thistle. Thistle was no ordinary rabbit. He had a soft, white coat that glimmered under the moonlight, and his eyes sparkled with a kindness that made every creature he met feel at ease. But what made Thistle truly unique was his lantern. It was a small, delicate thing, with a glowing light that flickered like a star on a calm night. Thistle had found the lantern one crisp autumn evening when he was wandering through the forest. It was hidden beneath a pile of fallen leaves, its light still warm despite being buried for who knows how long. The moment Thistle found it, he knew it was meant for him, as if the lantern had been waiting for someone kind enough to carry its light. From that day on, he carried the lantern with him wherever he went, lighting his way through the forest and helping others along the path. Thistle's lantern was no ordinary light. It had a magical glow that could brighten even the darkest corners of the forest. It wasn't just a source of light, but a symbol of hope. And Thistle used it to help every creature he could, whether they were lost in the shadows or in need of a little comfort. On one particularly quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Thistle set off on his usual evening walk through the forest. The air was cool, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves above him. As he hopped along the winding path, his lantern's glow cast a warm light on the ground, creating long shadows that danced with the wind. Thistle loved these peaceful walks, where he could listen to the whispering trees and the distant calls of owls and crickets. But tonight, there was something different in the air. The forest seemed quieter than usual, and Thistle couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. It was then that he heard a soft, muffled sound, like someone calling for help. Without hesitation, Thistle's ears perked up, and he hurried towards the sound. As he followed the faint cry, he soon came upon a small, trembling fox caught in a bush. The fox's fur was tangled, and he looked frightened, his wide eyes filled with panic. "Oh dear," said Thistle, his voice full of concern. "What happened to you, little fox?" The fox, barely able to speak through his fear, whimpered, "I got caught in these thorns. I was trying to find my way home, but I lost my path, and now I can't get out." Thistle's heart melted with sympathy. He knew how scary it could be to feel lost and helpless, especially in the vast forest where every tree seemed the same. "Don't worry," said Thistle gently. "I'll help you." He set his lantern down on the ground, and the soft glow from the lantern seemed to reassure the fox. Thistle carefully worked to untangle the fox from the thorns, his paws moving with gentle precision. It took some time, but with the lantern's light guiding him, Thistle was able to free the little fox from the thorns. "Thank you, kind rabbit," the fox said, his voice shaking but full of gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Thistle smiled warmly, his eyes sparkling with kindness. "You're safe now. Do you know the way home?" The fox shook his head, his ears drooping. "I thought I did, but now everything looks so unfamiliar." Thistle nodded. He understood the feeling all too well. "I'll help you find your way," he said softly. With the lantern's light shining ahead of them, Thistle and the fox began to walk through the forest together. As they moved, Thistle's soft, gentle voice comforted the fox, and soon the two of them were chatting like old friends. The fox told Thistle about his family, and Thistle shared stories of the many animals he had helped over the years. The lantern's light flickered as they walked, its glow growing stronger with every step they took. The path ahead seemed clearer, and the shadows of the forest no longer felt as dark. The fox's fear began to melt away, and he felt safer with Thistle by his side. Eventually, they reached the edge of the forest where the fox could see his home in the distance, a small den nestled beneath a group of tall oak trees. The moon had risen higher in the sky now, and its silver light joined with the lantern's glow, casting a soft, peaceful light over the clearing. "This is where I live," said the fox, his tail wagging happily. "Thank you for bringing me home." Thistle smiled, his heart filled with warmth. "I'm just glad I could help," he said. The fox nuzzled him gently. "You're the kindest rabbit I've ever met, Thistle. Thank you for everything." Thistle nodded, his soft eyes shining with happiness. "It's my pleasure, little fox. Remember, you're never alone as long as you have a light to guide you." With that, the fox bounded happily towards his den, his heart light and content. Thistle watched for a moment before turning back into the forest. His lantern flickered in the night, casting a gentle glow as he hopped along the familiar path. As he walked, he couldn't help but think about how wonderful it was to help others, to be the light in someone else's darkness. He had always known that the lantern was special, but it was moments like this that made him realize just how much power kindness and compassion could have. Thistle continued on his way, knowing that no matter how dark the forest might seem, at times there was always light to be found. And with his lantern in hand, he was ready to share that light with anyone who needed it. In the quiet of the forest, under the watchful eyes of the stars, Thistle, the kind rabbit with a lantern, made his way through the night, spreading warmth and light wherever he went, knowing that his kindness would always be his guiding star. In the heart of a peaceful valley, where the hills stood as quiet guardians and the trees whispered in the wind, there was a river unlike any other. It flowed gently through the valley, winding around the lush green meadows beneath the tall, swaying trees and over smooth stones that sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. But this river, known by all who lived nearby as River Melody, had a secret that made it stand out from all the other rivers. It could sing. The river's song was soft and soothing, a melody that could calm the busiest of minds and bring peace to the most troubled of hearts. Its lullaby was carried on the breeze, a gentle hum that made everything feel as if the world itself was rocking to sleep. The creatures of the forest had long been enchanted by this song. Birds, perched on the branches of trees, would pause in their flight to listen, and deer would stop grazing by the water's edge, their ears flicking back in delight at the music. Even the flowers seemed to sway a little more gently when the river sang. The song wasn't loud, but it had a magical quality that touched the very soul. It was as if the river itself was alive, breathing and humming, carrying stories from the stars above and the earth below. It had no words, only notes. But those notes spoke more deeply than any voice could. For years, the river had sung its lullaby each evening as the sun set behind the hills, and each morning when the first rays of dawn touched the valley. And it was during one such evening, when the stars began to twinkle like tiny diamonds in the darkening sky, that a little girl named Lily came to the river for the first time. Lily was new to the valley, having just moved with her family from a faraway town. The change was hard for her. She missed her old home, the bustling streets, and the sound of her friends' laughter. Here, the valley was quiet, and the only sounds she could hear were the chirping of crickets and the wind rustling through the trees. One evening, feeling lonely and restless, Lily wandered out into the meadow, her bare feet brushing against the cool grass. The moon was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow over everything, and as she walked, she found herself drawn to the sound of water. She followed the sound until she reached the riverbank, where she stopped, her eyes wide in wonder. The river's surface shimmered under the moonlight, its waters reflecting the stars above. And then, as if the river knew she was there, it began to sing. At first, Lily was unsure what it was. The sound was soft, like the gentle rustling of leaves, but there was something more to it, something magical. It was as if the river was speaking directly to her heart, soothing her in a way she had never felt before. She sat down on a smooth rock by the water's edge, listening intently, her eyes closing as she let the river's song fill her with peace. The lullaby was simple, yet beautiful, a melody that seemed to slow time itself. As the river's song swirled around her, Lily's worries faded away. She felt a sense of calm she hadn't felt in days, as if the river was telling her that everything would be okay. The sadness that had lingered in her chest began to soften, replaced by a quiet sense of comfort. The river sang on, its melody rising and falling in a rhythm that seemed to echo the beating of her own heart. For the first time since she had arrived in the valley, Lily felt at home. She stayed by the river for what seemed like hours, her head resting against the soft grass as she let the lullaby wash over her. It was the most peaceful sleep she had ever had, and when she awoke, the sun had begun to rise, casting a warm, golden light over the valley. Lily stood up slowly, stretching, her arms towards the sky, feeling refreshed in a way she had never expected. The river had not only sung her to sleep, but had given her a sense of belonging, a sense of peace that she hadn't realized she needed so badly. As the days passed, Lily found herself returning to the river every evening. It became her favorite part of the day, when the world seemed to slow down and the only sound was the river's soft lullaby. Sometimes she would sit by the water, just listening to the song. Other times she would dip her toes into the cool water, feeling the gentle current against her skin. And every time, the river's song would bring her a sense of calm, a reminder that no matter how big the world seemed, she was never alone. One evening, as she sat by the river, something changed. The song was softer than usual, almost as if the river was tired. Lily frowned and leaned closer, wondering why the lullaby sounded so faint. It was then that she noticed something unusual. There were no animals around, no birds in the trees or frogs by the water. The forest was silent. The trees were still. The river's song, though still gentle, lacked the usual magic. Lily's heart sank. She had never heard the river sound so sad before. "Why are you so quiet?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The river's soft lullaby continued, but now there was a note of longing in it, as if it, too, was searching for something. It wasn't like before, when it sang with the joy of the world. This time, it seemed to sing with sorrow. Lily felt a wave of concern wash over her. She stood up, looking around the empty meadow. "What's wrong, River Melody?" she asked softly. And then, as if in response, the river's song grew quieter still, like a fading dream. Lily's heart ached. She had come to love the river. Its song had become a part of her own happiness, and now it seemed to be in distress. She couldn't bear the thought of it being sad. Lily made a decision right then. She would not let the river be lonely. She promised that every evening she would come and sit by its side, listening to its lullaby, so that it would never have to sing alone again. From that day on, Lily made sure to visit the river every evening. With each visit, the song grew. Stronger, the lullaby returned to its sweet, soothing melody. And so, the river that had once sung for the world's creatures continued to sing, not just for the valley, but for Lily, too, who had become its greatest listener and friend. And whenever the moon rose high and the stars twinkled in the night sky, the sound of a gentle lullaby could be heard, floating on the breeze, a song of comfort and peace for all who needed it. The river sang, and its lullaby would carry on forever, as long as there was someone there to listen. On a crisp autumn evening, when the last light of the sun bathed the sky in a golden hue, a little boy named Sam wandered far from his home, deep into the dense woods that bordered his village. He had been playing near the edge of the forest, chasing after the colorful leaves that danced in the breeze, but in his excitement, he had ventured too far. Now, as the evening shadows stretched longer and the cool air began to settle in, Sam realized that he didn't know the way back. He had been so lost in the beauty of the forest, the way the trees whispered to each other, the way the branches swayed in rhythm with the wind, that he hadn't paid attention to the path he had taken. The once familiar surroundings now felt strange and unfamiliar, and a knot of worry began to tighten in his chest. He called out, his voice echoing in the silence, but only the wind answered. The trees rustled above him, their leaves shaking in the cold breeze, but they offered no comfort, only more shadows. As darkness began to creep in, Sam sat down on a large rock near the base of an ancient oak tree. His heart was racing and his mind was full of worries. "What if I never find my way home?" he wondered aloud, his voice trembling. But just as he was about to give in to fear, a soft whisper stirred the air around him. It wasn't a voice, but a sound, a gentle breeze that seemed to carry with it a secret. Sam's eyes widened in surprise and he stood up, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over him. The wind had changed direction and it seemed to beckon him, urging him to follow. He glanced around, unsure of what to do, but the wind continued to move in the same direction, swirling around him like a friendly guide. It was as if the wind knew the way. With a deep breath, Sam decided to follow it. He took a few cautious steps, his feet crunching on the fallen leaves, and soon he was walking deeper into the forest, allowing the wind to lead him. The air was cool against his skin, and the sounds of the forest seemed to quiet around him, as if the world itself was holding its breath. As he walked, the wind seemed to grow stronger, urging him forward with each passing step. The trees around him swayed, their branches bending in the breeze, and for the first time, Sam felt as though the forest was not a place of fear, but a place of comfort. The wind was no longer a force of nature that he feared. It was a friend, guiding him through the darkness, showing him the way home. Every step Sam took felt more confident than the last, as if the wind was giving him the courage to continue. He walked past bushes and under branches, through a small clearing, and around a large boulder that had once seemed so intimidating. Now it felt like a small obstacle in his journey, one that he easily navigated. The wind whispered through the trees, its song soft and reassuring. It was as if it was telling him that he was not lost at all, but merely on a journey, and the path home was closer than he thought. As the night grew darker, the sky overhead glittered with stars, and Sam felt a deep sense of peace settle in his heart. The wind continued to guide him, pushing gently against his back, urging him on with every step. And then, just as he began to wonder if he was truly on the right path, he saw it. A small clearing ahead, the flickering light of a lantern glowing softly in the distance. Sam's heart leapt with joy. He recognized the light immediately. It was the light from the window of his home. The wind had brought him to the edge of the forest, right to the doorstep of his house. With a wide smile on his face, Sam quickened his pace, his feet barely touching the ground as he ran toward the warm, welcoming glow. The trees seemed to open up before him, and the wind no longer urged him forward but danced joyfully around him, as if celebrating with him. As he reached the edge of the clearing, he could hear the sounds of his family's voices calling out to him. He stepped into the warmth of the lantern's light, and there, standing by the door of his home, was his mother, her arms wide open. "Sam, where have you been? We've been so worried," she exclaimed, her voice filled with relief and love. Sam ran into her arms, feeling the warmth of her embrace wrap around him like a blanket. He buried his face in her shoulder and whispered, "I got lost in the woods, but the wind showed me the way home." His mother smiled gently, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "The wind, huh? Well, I'm glad it brought you back to us safely." Sam nodded, his heart still racing with the excitement of the adventure. He looked back toward the forest, where the trees stood silent and still under the blanket of stars. He knew that he had been afraid, but now he felt nothing but gratitude for the wind that had guided him. It had been his silent companion, whispering to him in the darkness, showing him the way when he had lost his way. As Sam stepped inside the warmth of his home, the wind seemed to carry on, its soft song still echoing in his ears. He knew that it would always be there, a quiet force, guiding him whenever he needed it. From that night on, whenever Sam ventured into the woods, he no longer feared the darkness. He knew that, no matter where he went, the wind would always show him the way home. High above the world, where the skies stretched endlessly in shades of blue and white, there lived a cloud named Cirrha. Cirrha was unlike any other cloud in the vast sky. While most clouds were always in motion, drifting across the heavens, moving with the wind and changing shapes with the whims of the weather, Cirrha was patient. She didn't hurry like the others. She didn't rush to meet the sun or chase the winds. Cirrha took her time, drifting slowly, waiting for something she wasn't quite sure of but felt in her very being. There were days when the sun shone brightly, and the sky was clear with no clouds in sight. On such days, Cirrha would float quietly, taking in the warmth of the sun's rays, watching the world below go about its busy routine. She would pass over sleepy valleys and bustling cities, over tall forests and calm lakes, and as she gazed down, she could see all the people going about their lives. Some hurrying to work, some sitting peacefully by the shore, and others resting beneath the shade of trees. Though Sira could see all this, she remained calm, drifting with the gentlest of breezes, knowing that her time would come soon. It was a quiet sort of waiting, not filled with impatience or frustration, but with an inner peace that made her different from all the other clouds. On some days, the winds would come, swirling around her, urging her to move faster, to go somewhere. But Sira would just smile softly and let the winds pass by, knowing that when the time was right, she would move. There was no need to rush. One evening, as the sky began to change colors, turning from golden to pink to deep purple, Sira noticed something special. Far below, in a small village nestled at the foot of a mountain, there was a little girl named Ilara who sat on the edge of a grassy hill, staring up at the sky. Ilara had been waiting for something too, waiting for the rain. The drought had lasted for many weeks, and the fields were dry, the crops withered, and the trees had begun to lose their leaves. The villagers had prayed for rain, but the skies had remained clear, and the earth had grown thirstier by the day. Ilara's family, like the others, had been struggling, but Ilara's hope never wavered. Every evening, she would climb the hill behind her home and sit there, looking up at the sky, her heart full of faith that the rain would come soon. She would whisper to the wind, "Please, bring the rain, for the earth is thirsty." The other villagers would tell her that the rain was not coming, that they needed to be patient. But Ilara knew that patience was not about waiting without hope. It was about believing that the right moment would come when it was meant to. On that evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Ilara sat on the hill, her eyes fixed on the sky, waiting. And Sira, far above her, watched as well. She had been drifting for so long, patiently waiting for the right moment, and when she saw Ilara, she knew that her wait was almost over. Something deep within Sira stirred. She could feel the pull, the gentle call to move, to bring what was needed to the world below. Slowly, Sira began to gather herself, moving ever so slowly across the sky, her shape changing as she grew larger. The winds that had once urged her to hurry now carried her gently toward the village where Ilara waited. The night air began to grow cooler, and a soft breeze blew through the trees as Sira drew closer. Ilara, still waiting, began to feel a strange sense of calm. It was as if something was stirring in the air, something she couldn't quite explain. She looked up at the sky, noticing the once clear blue beginning to shift, darkening as a soft shadow spread across the horizon. For the first time in weeks, she felt a twinge of hope rise within her. Slowly, the first few drops of rain began to fall, gentle and soft, like tiny whispers from the sky. Ilara closed her eyes, feeling the cool drops on her skin, and a smile. He spread across her face. The earth had begun to drink again, and the world felt alive once more. As the rain fell, Sira continued her slow, patient journey across the sky. She didn't rush, she didn't need to. The rain was here, and her purpose had been fulfilled. The sky filled with the gentle sound of raindrops tapping against leaves, rooftops, and the earth below. The land sighed in relief as the rain soaked into the thirsty soil, bringing new life and nourishment to the plants, the trees, and the animals that had been waiting as well. The fields that had once been barren began to sparkle with droplets, and the air was filled with the fresh, clean scent of rain. The people of the village who had been waiting for so long came out of their homes to stand in the rain, their faces turned up to the sky, their hearts full of gratitude. Ilara stood on the hill, watching as the rain fell around her, her arms open to welcome it. She closed her eyes, feeling the rain on her skin, and whispered a quiet thank you to the sky. Sira, high above, continued to drift through the clouds, content and peaceful. Her job was done. She had waited patiently for the right moment, and now the world below was being refreshed and renewed. The earth had been thirsty, and Sira had brought the rain. She knew that the wait had been worth it. The gentle, patient waiting that had carried her across the sky had led her to this moment. The moment when she could bring peace to the earth and fulfillment to the people who had been waiting as well. And as the rain fell softly, Kira smiled, knowing that she had done her part. The world was peaceful again, and the little girl on the hill had learned the power of patience and hope. As the night grew deeper and the rain continued to fall, Sira floated gently in the sky, her journey complete, knowing that in the waiting, everything had been just as it was meant to be. On a clear, peaceful night, when the world was wrapped in the soft embrace of darkness and the stars glittered like diamonds scattered across the sky, there was a little girl named Lily who sat quietly by her window, gazing up at the moon. She had always loved the moon with its gentle glow and its calming presence. Each night she would wait eagerly for the moon to rise, just so she could see its silvery light fill the sky. But tonight, Lily felt a little different. She wasn't sure why, but there was something about the moon's light that seemed to call to her. It felt like it was whispering her name, like it wanted to share a secret with her. As she stared up at the moon, a feeling of warmth and comfort washed over her, and for a moment, she felt as though the moon understood her. Her heart, which had been heavy with worries, felt lighter. She thought of her day, how she had spent hours at school doing her homework and playing with her friends. She thought about the little things that had bothered her, the misunderstanding with her best friend, the small argument with her parents, the moments when she felt unsure of herself. But as she looked at the moon, all those worries seemed to drift away, replaced by a sense of peace she couldn't explain. It was as if the moon was telling her that everything would be okay, that all the little troubles of the day would fade into the night, just as the light from the setting sun faded into the horizon. Lily felt a gentle longing in her heart, a desire to reach out and touch the moon, to feel its soft glow wrap around her like a warm hug. But she knew she couldn't. The moon was too far away, floating high above the earth, shining brightly in the night sky. Yet, as if in answer to her thoughts, a soft breeze stirred the air around her, and for a brief moment, the trees outside her window seemed to dance in the wind, their leaves rustling in a soft melody. It was as though the night itself had come, alive, joining in her quiet yearning. She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, something magical happened. The moon, which had been just a glowing orb in the sky, seemed to grow brighter, its light stretching down toward her. The beams of moonlight flowed like a silver ribbon through her window, filling her room with a soft, radiant glow. It felt warm, as though the moon itself was sending her a hug, reaching out to her with its light. Lily gasped, feeling the warmth on her skin, and smiled. The moon was hugging her, just as she had wished. She could feel its comforting embrace, like the softest blanket wrapping around her, making her feel safe and loved. She stood up from her window, her heart beating faster, and stepped into the soft light that filled the room. As she stood there, she felt a sense of calm that she had never felt before. It was as if the moon was holding her, letting her know that everything would be okay, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Lily closed her eyes and took a deep breath, letting the peaceful feeling wash over her. The worries of the day, the little troubles that had once seemed so big, were now distant memories. They no longer mattered. All that mattered was the present moment, standing in the light of the moon, feeling its warmth and love. Time seemed to stand still as Lily basked in the gentle hug from the moon. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. The moonlight wrapped around her like a tender embrace, soothing her heart and filling her with a sense of belonging. She felt as though she was a part of something much larger than herself, something beautiful and timeless. The moon, with all its quiet wisdom, had reached out to her, and in that moment, Lily knew that she was never truly alone. As the night stretched on, Lily continued to stand in the soft glow, feeling the warmth of the moon's hug surround her. The world outside her window seemed far away, and yet she felt connected to it in a way she couldn't explain. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, the stars twinkled high above, and the night wrapped around her like a cozy blanket, all while the moon continued to shine down, watching over her. Eventually, the night grew quieter, and the moon began its slow journey across the sky. Lily knew it was time to say goodnight. She gave one last look at the glowing orb in the sky, feeling a deep sense of gratitude in her heart. The moon had given her more than just light. It had given her comfort, peace, and the feeling that she was cherished. As she climbed into bed and snuggled under her warm covers, she felt the soft echo of the moon's embrace linger in her heart. She smiled, knowing that no matter where she was or what the future held, the moon would always be there, watching over her, offering its gentle hug whenever she needed it. And with that thought, Lily closed her eyes and drifted into a peaceful sleep, the moon's light still dancing in her dreams, a quiet reminder that she was loved, always. One night, far beyond the reach of any human eyes, a tiny star named Celestia had spent many days and nights twinkling brightly in the sky, shining with all the radiance a star could muster. She had been born in a faraway corner of the universe where darkness surrounded her like a blanket. But from the moment she appeared, she was special. Unlike the other stars that blinked in and out of sight with the rhythm of time, Celestia was different. She had been told stories by the elder stars about how they shined and flickered with their own unique patterns, how they each had their own purpose in the great cosmic dance. However, Celestia, although brilliant in her own way, always felt a little different. She had been watching the world below, her light falling softly on the lands far beneath her. But unlike the other stars, whose beams were scattered across the vast skies, Celestia wanted more. She wanted to touch the lives of those she watched from above, to bring her light to the people and creatures below who lived in darkness, waiting for something to lift their spirits. She longed for a day when she could shine in such a way that her light would be noticed, not just by the sky, but by the hearts of those who needed it most. Each night as she twinkled in the heavens, she would watch families, friends, and even lonely travelers looking up, hoping for a sign or a moment of peace. Yet no one ever saw her. Her light, though bright, was one of many, lost among 1,000 others, flickering like the rest. The sadness in her heart began to grow, but she held on to hope. She wanted to believe that there was a time when someone, somewhere, would notice her and understand the purpose of her existence. One evening, as the stars began to gather and the moon rose with its calm, steady glow, Celestia noticed something special. Far below, on a quiet hill, there was a small child, a girl named Isla. She was sitting alone, her back resting against the trunk of an old oak tree, her eyes fixed on the sky. She was tired, weary from a long day filled with tasks and chores, but what weighed most heavily on her heart was the loneliness she felt. In the quiet of the evening, when everything else was still, Isla had often found herself searching for something, a sign, a piece of hope that would fill the emptiness she sometimes felt inside. She had heard the stories of the stars, about how they were guides for sailors, protectors of the night, and wishes in the dark. But as she looked up now, she felt the stars were distant, unreachable. They were beautiful, yes, but they felt, too, far away to offer her the comfort she sought. Isla sighed, wishing that the stars could speak to her, that one could come down and tell her everything would be okay. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the cool night air to wash over her. At that very moment, as though the universe was listening to her deepest desire, Celestia, the little star who had watched for so long, decided to do something she had never done before. She began to shine with all the brilliance she could muster. Her light grew brighter, warmer, and more radiant, cutting through the darkness like a golden thread. She didn't care about the other stars. She didn't care if they noticed her or not. All she cared about was the little girl on the hill. She had no idea how or why, but Celestia felt a deep connection to Isla, as though their hearts were drawn together by some invisible force. She wanted to bring light to her, to show her that she wasn't alone. Celestia's glow stretched far and wide, reaching down to the ground, all the way to Isla's small, quiet hill. And in that very moment, Isla opened her eyes. She blinked, surprised by the sudden brightness, and looked up at the sky. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw Celestia shining brighter than she had ever seen a star shine before. It was as if the star had come alive just for her, glowing with a warmth and light that filled the night air. For the first time in a long while, Isla felt a smile tug at her lips. The loneliness in her heart began to fade as the light from Celestia bathed her in its glow. It was as if the star was whispering to her, telling her that she was seen, that she was not alone in the world. The sadness that had weighed on Isla for so long melted away, replaced by a feeling of peace she had never known. She sat up straighter, her eyes wide, and a sense of wonder filled her as she realized that this star, this single, beautiful light, was shining just for her. She felt as though the universe had heard her silent plea, and in that moment, she knew she wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't alone. The warmth from the star's light reached into her heart, and a gentle smile spread across Isla's face. She closed her eyes for a moment, making a quiet wish that this beautiful moment would never end. And as she did, Celestia felt something she had never felt before, a deep sense of fulfillment. She had shown her light in the most beautiful way possible, and now the little girl had found peace. The star had done what she had always longed to do. She had touched someone's heart, brought them comfort, and shown them that no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always light, somewhere in the world. As the night continued, Celestia began to feel a soft, gentle pull within her, a quiet reminder that all things must eventually return to where they came from. Her time on this part of her journey was coming to an end, but she wasn't sad. No, Celestia felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had found her purpose in that moment with Isola, and now she could return to the sky with a heart full of love and light. As the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, Celestia slowly started to fade, her brilliant glow softening and gently disappearing into the morning. But just before she faded completely, she left behind a small, soft trail of sparkling dust that drifted gently to the earth as though leaving Isla with a reminder of her light, a token of her love. Isla watched in awe as the star slowly faded, but she no longer felt sadness. She smiled, knowing that even though the star had returned to the sky, its light would never truly leave her. She had learned something important that night, that no matter how far away the stars might seem, they were always close by, watching, waiting, and shining for those who needed them. And as Celestia returned to the vast sky, she did so with a smile, knowing that her mission was fulfilled. She had touched a heart, and that was all she had ever needed to do. The star had returned to the sky, glowing with a contented light, and for Isla, her heart was filled with the warmth of knowing she was never truly alone.